The stadium is shaking. Thousands of people are screaming in perfect unison. Faces are painted. Voices are breaking. Hearts are racing as if survival itself depends on the next few seconds. And yet, somewhere in that same city, at that exact moment, someone is completely calm. They're not angry. They're not distracted. They don't feel superior. They simply feel nothing. No excitement, no tension, no urge to look at the score. And that silence inside their mind isn't accidental. Because while sports obsession looks like passion on the surface, underneath it is a very specific neurological loop, and some brains never enter it. Most people don't realize this, but sports obsession doesn't start with liking the game. It starts with how the brain responds to collective emotion. When a crowd reacts together, the brain releases dopamine without effort. You don't need to understand strategy. You don't need to think. Your nervous system syncs with the group. Excitement becomes automatic. Identity forms quickly. We are winning. We are losing. For many brains, this shared emotional surge feels powerful. It fills a psychological gap. It creates belonging without vulnerability, purpose without responsibility. But for some minds, that surge never arrives. Their brains don't reward collective emotion the same way. When the crowd explodes, their nervous system stays neutral. The dopamine spike is weak. The emotional payoff doesn't justify the noise. So instead of feeling connected, they feel overstimulated. Instead of excitement, they feel pressure. And instead of belonging, they feel invaded. This is the first key difference. Sports obsession thrives in brains that seek external emotional regulation. These brains subconsciously outsource excitement, identity, and emotional highs to something outside themselves. But immune brains regulate internally. They don't need a scoreboard to feel alive. They don't need a team to carry their emotional weight. Their stimulation threshold is higher, and their reward system is more selective. That doesn't make them better. It makes them different. Another layer most people miss is identity fusion. In sports-obsessed minds, the brain fuses personal identity with an external symbol, a team, a jersey, a legacy. Wins feel personal. Losses feel humiliating. Criticism feels like an attack. But immune brains resist identity fusion by default. Their sense of self is less flexible, but also less fragile. They don't merge with symbols easily. They observe instead of absorb. When others say, "we won," their brain silently asks, "who is we?" This isn't arrogance, it's neurological distance. And distance changes everything. Because once the brain refuses to fuse identity, emotional dependency collapses. The highs don't hit as hard, the lows don't sting enough. Over time, interest fades, not because sports are meaningless, but because the emotional return is inefficient. There's also a deeper factor few talk about: prediction fatigue. Sports demand constant emotional investment in uncertain outcomes: hope, anxiety, anticipation, release, repeat. Some brains love this loop. It mimics gambling psychology, controlled risk with emotional payoff. Other brains hate uncertainty without agency. Immune minds prefer effort-based outcomes. If they can't influence the result, their brain disengages. Watching others perform while having zero control feels psychologically draining rather than thrilling. So while one person feels energized watching a final match, another feels mentally trapped, forced to emotionally react without permission. That reaction is not disinterest, it's resistance, and resistance is often misunderstood. Society frames sports obsession as normal and disengagement as cold, boring, or antisocial. But neurologically, the immune brain isn't empty. It's guarded. It protects attention fiercely. These minds are less likely to surrender hours of focus to events that don't build skill, insight, or personal growth. Their dopamine system prioritizes depth over spectacle. That's why many of them gravitate towards solitary mastery, analysis, creation, strategy, systems, things where progress is internal and measurable. Sports don't offer that feedback loop. Another uncomfortable truth: sports obsession often acts as a safe emotional outlet for suppressed aggression, rivalry, and tribal instinct. Cheering is sanctioned aggression. Rivalry is socially acceptable hostility. Loss justifies anger without consequence. But immune brains process aggression differently. They either internalize it, intellectualize it, or redirect it into controlled environments. Loud emotional discharge feels unnecessary or even embarrassing. So when others scream, they withdraw. When others chant, they analyze. And when others feel unity, they feel overstimulation. None of this happens consciously. No one wakes up and decides to be immune. It's built slowly through personality, nervous system sensitivity, childhood reinforcement patterns, and how reward circuits were trained early in life. Some brains learn that calm equals safety. Some learn that crowds equal chaos. Some learn that excitement always comes with disappointment. And once the brain associates emotional highs with loss of control, it stops chasing them, quietly, automatically. But here's where it gets darker and more interesting. Because immunity to sports obsession isn't isolated. It often extends to other mass behaviors too. Trends, celebrity worship, viral outrage, group hysteria. The same brain that doesn't care about sports often doesn't react the way society expects in other emotional moments either. And that creates a dangerous misunderstanding. Because when the world runs on collective emotion, the person who doesn't feel it looks disconnected, cold, detached. But in reality, their brain is doing something else entirely. And the moment you understand what it's doing instead, you start to see why these minds are often misunderstood, pressured, and quietly isolated, and why forcing them to care like everyone else never works. Because the immunity isn't a choice, it's a system. And that system has consequences most people never see until it starts shaping how these minds relate to success, relationships, and meaning itself. This immunity doesn't just affect how someone feels about sports, it quietly shapes how they move through the world. When a brain resists mass emotion, it also resists social programming. It doesn't absorb excitement on command. It doesn't follow passion just because it's popular. That means motivation has to come from somewhere deeper, or it doesn't come at all. This is why many of these minds appear distant, selective, or emotionally reserved. Not because they lack feeling, but because their emotions are not easily hijacked. They don't spike on cue. They don't crash with the crowd. But there is a hidden cost. Without external emotional surges, life can feel flat. While others borrow meaning from teams, victories, and shared moments, immune minds must build meaning internally. And that takes effort, discipline, self-awareness. Some succeed and become highly focused, independent thinkers. Others struggle and feel disconnected, bored, or misunderstood. This is why forcing interest never works. You can't shame a brain into dopamine. You can't pressure curiosity into existence. When someone says, "I just don't care," they're not rejecting the game. Their nervous system already made the decision. The real question isn't why they don't obsess over sports. It's what they choose to obsess over instead. Because every brain needs focus, every mind needs meaning. Some find it in crowds, some find it in silence. And once you understand that difference, you stop trying to fit everyone into the same emotional mold. You stop calling it strange, you stop calling it cold, and you realize something most people never do. Not all brains are meant to cheer. Some are meant to observe, calculate, and walk away untouched. And that quiet distance isn't emptiness. It's a different kind of power.